The envelope front shows several views. Here we have view A, B, and C. The envelope back gives suggestions for fabric types, the actual sizes, the yardage for 45-inch wide, 60-inch wide, sometimes for fabric with nap, which means that like a cat it would have fur that you would run in one direction, or a print that has a top and a bottom. It also includes notions for thread, sizes of elastic, sizes of zippers, sizes of buttons, gives you finished garment measurements and other measurements that coincide with the body. Inside the envelope you will have a section of directions and a folded up group of tissue paper. Please unfold the tissue paper and press it with a dry iron to remove wrinkles. I've chosen to make view B, and when I look down here I see for view B I need pieces 1, the front, 2, the pocket, 3, the back, 4, the front yoke, and 5, the back yoke. This is a view of the layout using 45-inch wide fabric for view B, the front and the back and the pocket. The yokes are not included here because the picture on the pattern front showed the yokes in contrasting color, so they are up in this location, and there's a layout for using 45 wide fabric or 60-inch wide fabric. When looking at that layout you will see the different shades. Here it shows you that if it is the gray tone, it's the right side of the fabric. The white is indicating the wrong side of the fabric. If it's got dots in it, it's for interfacing. And if it's got little lines across the shaded part, it's for the right side of the lining, and little lines across the plain white, it's for the wrong side of the lining. The front of this jumper uses piece 1. Piece 2 is the pocket. And piece 4 is the front yoke. Notice the markings. Right on this edge it says to place in the fold. You see the 2 arrows that point toward where the fold will be. There is then a notch here, small circles here, large circles here, and another notch right here. This notch will match with the notch of the back yoke at the shoulder seam. This large circle will match with the large circle on piece 1 here, and these are by the size. The small circle will match with the small circle on piece 1, and the notch will line up with piece 1, and the center fronts will match. Again, the center front is laid on a fold, this indicating the fold line. The pocket has a large dot, dashed line, and a small dot. These are for the placement of this pocket. If you notice, this pocket is much larger. Within the pattern directions, they tell you to use a 6.5-inch piece of elastic. You will be making a casing. Here it says fold line and stitch line. You will make a casing, run the elastic through there. It'll cause this to gather up. This part will be turned under for the seam allowance, and eventually this pocket will fit where these dashed lines are indicated on the pattern, and you will top stitch. This line is for lengthening or shortening a garment. That would be if you measured around the chest and the waist and the back waist length, and you found that the back waist length was longer than what the pattern envelope said, you would cut across here and insert extra paper for your pattern. If it was shorter, you would fold out the excess here. This is a multi-size pattern, and you must decide now whether you want this for one use or for multiple uses. As this is a child's pattern, you probably will be using it many times, so I would recommend you either trace it, or you could do some clipping and folding to get the size you want this time to fold out later, but that does weaken the pattern. The pattern envelope has the sizes in inches for each of the sizes on the pattern, and I have the child's measurements. I find that the chest measurement is closest to the size 3, so size 3 will be my standard start-off point. But then the child has a back waist measurement closer to a size 6, or that is 1.5 inches longer than the size 3 back waist length. In order to get the pocket in the right place, I will be using the line to add 1.5 inches to the length of the pattern. Using plastic as a tracing element and a Sharpie pen, I have traced on the size 3 line along the bodice top to the lengthen and shorten line. I have carefully marked the size 3 dots and notch, and the notch over here, and using my favorite ruler I have laid out the 1.5 inch longer waist length we want and drawn another line here. Now I will take and move the entire pattern up to the new placement line, having added the 1.5 inches. After tracing the entire pattern with the size 3, except for the added back waist length of 1.5 inches, start noticing the extra details. It says that there's a 1.25 inch hem, so I've written that on the pattern. This is the center front fold line, so I've created the arrows and labeled it center front fold, marked the pocket placement, marked the dots at the top, but also this little arm's eye only has a 3/8 inch seam instead of the normal 5/8, so that's also been recorded. I've made the notch go out to cut because I find it easier to match up the notches that way, and likewise I've done the same with the front yoke piece. The notch, labeled the center front, added the dots, and drawn the size 3. Trace the remainder of the size 3 pieces, being sure to add that 1.5 inch just to the back waist length as you did on the front piece. The pattern is now ready to be laid out as per the pattern guide instructions. I have all the pieces that are needed. I traced the ones that were multi-size. The pocket is still the tissue paper as it was one side. The pattern instructions showed a layout where part of the fabric was folded and part of it was one layer. Here I've measured over the exact same amount from the selvage edge, which is right here, to the fold. Measured it several places along the line so that I'm sure that the fold is exactly parallel to that selvage edge. The pockets are laid on a single layer, but one pocket is face up and one pocket is face down so that they are mirror images. Everything's been measured from the selvage to the arrowed line, which is the grain line. It is very important that you keep your grain line on line or an exact bias, as this is what gravity pulls on your garment and will make them hang straight or cause them to go askew. The pieces are now cut out, and it is time to transfer the markings. There are several methods to transfer the marking, but for this purpose I'm going to show you the tailor's tack. It is just a thread and needle. You take a stitch, you leave about 2-inch tails on the stitch so that you can pull it apart and still leave threads indicating on the fabric where you have to match things. Don't pull them out as you work until you're ready to use it. In this case, I think I will even color code front ones one color and back ones the other to help keep everything organized.